Okay. Okay, we're going to get ready we're going to start. So if you're going to be part of this VIP deep dive, there's still time to grab a little food and come on up, and I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for staying. It's great to see you. All righty. My name is Barb Quijada. I am the liaison to Valley Interfaith Project from Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation. And we're going to do a little bit of a who, what, why, and then we're going to do a Civic Academy, which is one of the things that VIP does the best, I think. So, next slide, Libby, please. What is VIP? No problem. And then from that one, you can go quickly into the next one. So, Valley Interfaith Project is a network here in Maricopa County of 25 plus. We're gaining institutions, as we call them, and organizations and congregations. Right now it's between 25 and 30 dues-paying faith communities, associations, and other institutions. The main thing we do is organize together all of those institutions to build power for economic and social change for people in this county. We promote leadership development within member institutions. That's vital right now here at VUU. We're doing what we call one-on-one relationship meetings between a group of us that got trained to do that. We're doing that now with the Leadership Development Committee here at VUU. And then we're hoping to keep those circles widening so that people, so if somebody calls and says, could we get together for about half an hour for coffee? We'd like to get to know you. That's the kind of thing we're doing. It's relationship building. And VIP engages civilly across political and class boundaries to agitate for change, to push the people in power for change on things like education, housing, healthcare, and immigration. This next slide shows you just a few of, these are some of the congregations and organizations that are involved. It's certainly not a full list, but just gives you a sample of the kinds of the members, especially in the East Valley, but not all, that are involved. VUU isn't on there. I'm saying who we're aligned with, not us. Notice it is not just congregations. We have education associations. AEA Retired is part of that, and there are others. Next slide, please. So VIP is the organization in Maricopa County, and then we are aligned with two other organizations in the state, Northern Arizona Interfaith Council and Pima County Interfaith in the southern part of the state. And above that is, the West Southwest Industrial Areas Foundation, the IAF. So you'll probably hear us talking about the IAF. And Friday night, there was an IAF minister out of Texas who was interviewed on the new Jon Stewart show. It was a pretty rowdy interview, but it was great to see them getting some national attention. The IAF was the West-Southwest IAF was founded in 1940 in Texas, focusing on leadership development, relationships across lines that divide communities, and especially citizen action on concrete, winnable issues that transform communities. And that's one of the things that VIP really works on is what can be done, and is this something that we see the possibility of making change on winning? Let's put all our energy there rather than on things that might seem more pie in the sky. Next one, please. Our methods include what I just talked about, the one-on-one relationship meetings. Then you'll hear VIP, and probably here at VUU in the future, we'll talk about inviting you to a house meeting. It doesn't mean in a house, it can be anywhere, most likely here in the sanctuary, but those are small group meetings. So we start one-on-one, we widen the circle to small groups. Those small groups, either individually at a congregation or within a larger group of several congregations, may decide to start doing research actions, to really delving into a situation, and then putting together a civic academy, which is what you'll see an example of later today. We work across party lines to change policy to create a more just society. VIP is nonpartisan. We don't endorse candidates ever, but we are very political. So we work on both sides, and independents, Democrats, Republicans, everybody, to push them as people run for office, and then once they are elected and in office, to hold candidates accountable to either what they told us they were going to do or what we think they should be and they aren't doing. So it doesn't matter which party, we work on both sides. Next one. How we are connected. I did a little bit of this in my reflection this morning if you were here. Next slide. We started, VUU started its connection with VIP under our former minister, Reverend Andy. It began, I think, for him as a way to connect to other clergy outside of UU, Unitarian Universalism in the Valley. But then, of course, it morphed into more. There's a grammar error in the next one, I apologize. We were strengthened really a lot by our former administrator, Sue Ringler. She came to us as a leader in the Valley. Her title was, she was the leader of the Guardian Angels Catholic community, and she had this vast network of connections throughout the community, and VIP was one of those. She benefited from that. Our community benefited from that, as did VIP, and vice versa. Over those years, now going on probably 10 more than that years, our connection to VIP has been kept alive by early liaisons who were doing this work before me, Willa Cree and Denise McLeod, and some members who were working on it for a long time. Bevan Carter Rogers have been very active. Beverly McCormick, I think you're here, has been active from the beginning, and Kathy Fitzgerald and others. One of the places where VUU seems to connect the most with VIP is whenever there's action around education. All the proposition drives, all the referendums and all of that. And Bill Elliott has been a stalwart with that, keeping us going and connected with all the work on education. And as he knows, and as all of you, if you don't know, you will learn quickly, I hope, the minute the election is over. There's a battle going on already over the aggregate spending limit that's put on school districts, where they have the budget. They have bigger budgets now. The legislature passed a okay budget, but as of March 1st, if this aggregate spending limit isn't removed, they won't be able to spend it. So that's one of the things that VIP is really going to be working on hard. Thank you. Why do we pay VUU dues? Why does VUU pay dues? Well, first of all, next one, how much are we paying as our yearly dues? VUU is paying $3,750 a year as our dues to VIP. We decide how much, they don't. We tell them what we'd like. That has been what we've paid for the last 3 years. That was a cut from what we were paying before the pandemic, and I'm hoping that we can convince the budget people and the congregation to up that, to raise that back up for 2023. Among the 30 organizations that are part of VUU, the current largest dues contributors contribute from between $15,000 to $5,500, and the smallest up from $600 to nothing. There are some congregations that are really important members of VIP, but their congregation is really, really struggling right now, and so you don't have to pay your dues to be a member, but we sure hope you will. Paying our dues, the next one, demonstrates when we pay our dues and when we commit to that, it says VUU is committed to the work of community organizing, that we value our relationships with other progressive religious faiths, that we support Reverend Sarah's connections to clergy across the valley, and we know that just like VUU, VIP has bills to pay. Office space, air conditioning, lights, all the things we talk about here when we do our budgeting, VUU has to do their budgeting too. So, last one. That's not the end though, because we're going to do the Civic Academy, remember? people, the more people we can bring into into VIP, congregations like VUU, and their money that comes with their dues, then we have power. We're building power. So this is a plug for the district, for the Delegate Assembly, which is the semi-annual gathering of all the congregations and associations that come together. Reverend Sarah and I are really hoping that we have at a minimum 15 people from VUU who will go to that and show that power. And up here on the table, there is a QR code, those miracle little things where you can register for that assembly right today with using your phone, or you can take the paper home that has the link for that. You register, and then we will form a carpool here to be able to do that. But we'd love to have all of you do that. So that said, we're going to move in. Oh, I want to introduce very quickly some people who are helping me today. Michaela Young is a member of VUU, and she's going to help with the Civic Academy. She's right here in front. Logan, I'm sorry, I don't, last name. Toros. Logan is here as a member of VIP from Redemption Church. I think that's true. And she did a lot of work with the group that put this presentation together. I'm a good voice for it, but I didn't do any of the deep work on it, so I really appreciate the work they have done. And then Sammy Miracle is the organizer for VIP. She's the one that cracks the whip on all of us and says, come on, we got to have another meeting. We got to get this work done. So Michaela's going to come up and get us started with this. Do you want to be here or you want a handheld? Which do you prefer? Here? Okay. And then I'll come back up at that point.
Okay. So welcome to the VIP Civic Academy on Housing. Why should we as UUs care about housing? Affordable housing is an issue of hospitality. And as a proudly welcoming organization, who we welcome into our communities and our neighborhoods and our lives is about hospitality, and those that we don't is also a comment on hospitality. Our UU principles call us to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person and to promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. One way to promote equity is to make space for people in our communities by providing access to secure, stable, and affordable housing. So what we're hearing, and we also would like to know what you have been hearing. We've been hearing about rent increases of $200 to $600 per month, people working 50 to 60 hours per week to afford rent, families spending all their money on rent because they can't get a mortgage or can't find a place to buy, parents taking from their own retirement savings to support adult children with housing costs, people getting evicted with nowhere to go, onerous fees, security deposits being retained, and unresponsive property management, and long wait lists for designated affordable housing and landlords not accepting Section 8 vouchers. So I would like you to think about something that you've heard, not from the news, but from someone that you know, whether that's you, whether that's a family member or a friend, or the friend of a family member. I'd like you to turn to 1, 2, or 3 other people near you. So go ahead and turn and lock eyes with someone. What have you heard, not from the news, but from another person about their experience? Go ahead.
I'm going to give you another minute to wrap up. Okay, we're going to bring you back. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. The stories that you're telling each other are the kinds of stories that is what VIP hears, needs to hear, wants to hear, so that we can come together and say, these are the stories we know are going on, we're not making this up, and how can we then take that, find out the roots of it, and begin to act to make change. Next slide, please. So as all of you were saying, I'm sure out there, it's a tough environment for renters in Maricopa County right now. All over the country, but here, because it's affecting the people we know. One of every home sold in Arizona goes to an institutional landlord. So rather than an individual homeowner, there are people buying up homes, and especially apartments and mobile home places. 14% of the single-family homes in the valley are now owned as an investment. And there are real estate credits that people get under what's called REITs, Real Estate Investment Trusts. So these are companies that own or finance income-producing real estate across a range of property sectors. These companies have to meet a number of requirements to qualify as an REIT, but most of these trade on the major stock exchanges, and they offer a number of benefits to the investors. Consolidation of apartment buildings and mobile home park ownership. So if you travel around the valley and look at apartment complexes, you'll begin to notice that a lot of those apartment complexes have the same name. And that's because it's not one owner or one family that owns this apartment complex. It's they're buying them up and then scaling up from there. Right now, Arizona has a deficit of 270,000 housing units. In the city of Phoenix alone, there's a deficit of 20,000 apartment units, with the vacancy rate really, really low at 3 to 4%. So if you're looking for an apartment, even if you have some money, it's difficult. Those institutional landlords, which means their investment companies, are betting that housing prices will stay high, and they are bragging about the millions of dollars that they're making for little things like charging pet rent and keeping fees that were cleaning fees and deposits and not returning those. However, in the valley, there is not a deficit of luxury apartments. They're everywhere. Next one, please. The person I was talking to was talking about hearing on their neighborhood app that we see on some of the things. What was, Sandy, the name of that? Nextdoor. Reading about people being evicted. In September alone in Arizona, landlords filed to evict 6,685 Metro Phoenix renter households. highest since 2008. Now, we have to say, though, that eviction filings doesn't necessarily mean there are that many evictions. Some tenants will pay up, some will leave voluntarily, but this is the number of filings that there have been in Maricopa County in September. Next one. So this is the rise, this graph shows the rise of median rent in the Phoenix region between 2014 and 2022. And the red line is the beginning of the pandemic. So you can see it was going up, it was going up, it was going up, and then really fast.
Gracie,
Next
no.
one, please. We used to think about it that it was most affordable if you lived in the valley to
No.
live in the West Valley, but that is changing rapidly. We have stories of families in Central Phoenix who are being priced out of their rents and are moving, having to pick their family up, move out of school districts and things like that, are moving out to the edges, and yet those rents are going up just as fast. So
Gracie,
we show
no.
the range from Glendale at $1,200 median rent for a one-bedroom apartment to Scottsdale at $1,550, and Chandler is only a little bit, tiny bit below that. Next one, please. So I'm going to do quickly these two in Tempe, and then we're going to dig deeper into Chandler because VUU is in Chandler. But it's pretty easy to get these figures at the source that we have. So for renting a two-bedroom apartment in Tempe, those are the figures. The federal, it's Sammy or Logan, it's the federal government that says 30% is the federal government says 30% of a family's income is the threshold for for housing being an overburden to that family. Next one, please. That was a two-bedroom. This is a one-bedroom in Tempe. And for that, the threshold is 50% would be a severe housing overburden. But in Tempe, if you're making minimum wage, that's what it is. The figures that I'm going to show you for Chandler increase the minimum wage to $12.80, which is what it is now. And in January 1st, it'll go up to $13.85, but still the rent doesn't keep that. So the next one, please. So these are very quickly Chandler rents, and then we'll dig deeper into a one-bedroom and a two-bedroom. And the next one, please. So here, this is what it would the cost right now for renting a two-bedroom apartment in Chandler. And that's considering, in Chandler, the median household income is $85,000. In Tempe, it was $61,000, so there's a difference there. The average rent is $200 more in Chandler compared to Tempe. So a family renting a two-bedroom household, or a two-bedroom apartment in Chandler the average family would be spending 27% of their income on rent. A little bit below the official threshold for being overburdened. And notice it's a two-bedroom apartment. Many families would need and really like to have something a little bigger. Next slide. If you're looking at a one-bedroom apartment, it gets even scarier. $75%. Mm-hmm. Well, median, yeah, median. Yeah, yes.
Base rents, which doesn't include the taxes and the water and sewer and all of the other expenses that get added on.
Correct. Thank you. Yeah. So imagine, well, maybe you don't have to imagine. Maybe you know somebody who's doing this. No amount of budgeting is going to make 75% of your income for rent. Make it work for all the other things that you need. Now that's Chandler. What about buying? In the Phoenix area in August, the median sales price was $475,000. To spend 30% of your income, your household income on that, you'd need to make at least $85,000. The U.S. average is $65,000. Buying a house is out of the picture for many families, especially those with just a single earner or even two people who are making the minimum wage. It's just not going to be possible. Next one. So how did we get here? Why are we in this position? We have a couple of slides about the history of that. After World War II, the U.S. developed suburban neighborhoods, mostly single-family homes, and especially here in the Valley. That's the way people built. That's why we've gone out and out and out into the deserts. We've been talking to the city of Mesa, and they are just barely now starting to talk about multiple family housing. There were federal programs after the war, like the GI Bill and FHA loans, that made home ownership widely available. We have to remember, though, that there was redlining and other forms of discrimination in those programs. Only 2% of loans went to Black veterans, for instance. Yeah. And that has an effect on all of this in multiple ways. And then there's the savings and loan crisis, which was really a big deal here in Arizona in the 80s and 90s, resulted in a recession that decreased home construction. Between 1986 and 1991, the number of new homes constructed dropped from 1.8 million to 1 million, the lowest rate since World War II of building homes. Next one, continued, and then, of course, the Great Recession of 2008. The housing market crashed. Many homeowners lost their homes to foreclosure, and that put them into the rental market. Low-income homeowners were impacted the hardest because they had been the main recipients of the subprime mortgages that caused the crash. The federal government's housing agencies, hoping to stabilize home prices, then auctioned mortgages in foreclosure, and investors like Blackstone acquired more than 200,000 single-family homes in Sunbelt city suburbs and converted them to rental properties. New housing construction stalled after the recession and hasn't recovered, but our population keeps going up. Now more than 15 million households rent their single-family home in the U.S., and that's increasingly making U.S. increasingly a nation of renters. These landlords are primarily large institutional investors, not mom-and-pop investors. Shows you the city of Phoenix population growth. We'll take a look at Phoenix, mostly due to people moving in, not so much being born here. I had an interesting conversation the other day with a young woman. We were talking about rent, and I don't even know how we got on it. I was probably working on this program at a coffee shop, and she said, "Oh, I just moved here from California. The rents are great here." So we're dealing with that too. Next one. So this shows the housing production versus the population growth. The population growth are the red bars, and the housing. So from 2010 to 2018, that third one, you see that it's just not keeping up with the population. Thank you. So all of us want to do something about this. I think all of you do. Certainly VIP people really want to. But what are the things that are keep making it hard to take action on these things? Well, things like Arizona state law prohibits cities from enacting inclusionary zoning, and that would mean mandating that developers take 5 to 10% of all units and make them affordable, put them in the affordable category. That is against the law in Arizona. Rent control, rent caps, and most regulation of short-term rentals. And from here on, I will be mentioning short-term rentals. That's things like Airbnbs and vacation rentals Tempe is really working on trying to get some regulation to that, but again, they're stymied by a lot of state legislation. And we can't we can't do this presentation without talking about attitudes towards against affordable and low-income housing or high-density housing. We can't have this conversation without that. We were at a neighborhood gathering last night in Tempe, Frank and I, and because I had this information in my head, I was able to civilly halt someone in our neighborhood, which is not a fancy neighborhood in Tempe, someone from saying, we can't do that. We just can't have any more people here in this part of the city. It's too much. The traffic will be too much. And I had to say, you know, we need to start looking at this with different eyes. We can't always say, and you know the NIMBY, not in my backyard. And we're trying to convince people that we need to think about, yes, in my backyard, and how could that look like, and not it be just, oh my gosh, it's going to lower my housing, my investment. That's my little preaching. Sorry about that. Yeah. Yes. To add to that? We're going to get you a mic. Hold on, just a sec. Down to mute. I heard it click. There you go.
Check, check, check.
So I would like to add to this song with a couple comments. So there's a federal program called Section 8, or also known as HUD. And it's supposed to be like a voucher program for people who are low income. This is one of those things where on the surface it looks like it helps a lot of people, but in practice it doesn't really help. So when I lived in Iowa, at one point I applied and they told me that the wait list was 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't even bother, you know. And not only that, but even if I had made it through the wait list, there is only a minimum amount of units per property company that are coded for it. So and they do that on purpose to limit the amount of low-income people per complex or institutionalized landlord, whatever. And then when I talk to friends across the nation who were on it, like in California, where they had entire multi-family dwelling, the conditions were pretty dismal. They had bug problems, they had structural problems, they had pipe problems. So
Yeah. Angela, thank you. Section 8 is one of the pieces of this many faceted issue, and it's one that we need to understand more about, and your voice and your story about that will be helpful as we work on that too. I know that the city of Mesa just opened up their wait list, but it was with the idea that it was already so long that, as you say, the idea of making it to the top of that list is very difficult, if not impossible. Thank you for your comments. The state legislature has severely limited regulations that cities can put on short-term rentals, but there are things that people are looking at trying that could be changed about that, maybe to reduce that number, and we'll talk about that. But also, again, on Section 8 and anything else. But I think the first place is to examine our attitudes and the attitudes of our family and friends. Next one. What can we do? Well, some local agencies and institutions are working on this. One of the churches that's a member of VIP, St. Andrew's Episcopal in Glendale, is looking at building rental properties on their church land and adding to their budget by doing that. That puts them in the place of being property managers. And there's so many hoops to jump through. But they're working on seeing if that's a possibility. Cities could do things like, and some are beginning to, provide housing navigation and legal support for tenants, so people know for sure what can and can't be done, and when things are being done illegally, to evict them or to raise rents, and et cetera, to work on that. Provide rental assistance. Partner with nonprofits to build designated affordable housing on city land. Tempe is doing something called, they have something called the Hometown for All program. That is land that's owned by the city, and then people like Habitat for Humanity and other smaller entities are coming in and building on those pieces of land. Mesa right now has a huge opportunity that we're trying to push them on. There's a big section of land, Sammy, 20 acres? Maybe more than that. It's Central Mesa on University and Robson, I believe. 20 years ago, they bulldozed all the houses off of there and said they were going to develop. It's been sitting there all that time. They've had 2 or 3 developers come in. On some sites, if you look at it, it's called Site 17. They've had a couple of developers come in and then go away. The one that's beginning to look at it now didn't have any affordable housing in their plans at all in any of the 3 phases that they're talking to the city about. The city councilman who's in that district, though, is very supportive of changing that, and VIP is starting to work with her and with others, if she gets reelected, we're hoping, in the election, starting to do some work on that. So this is the kind of work that if we have more people who are willing to work together with us as part of a VUU core team that becomes part of VIP, that we could begin to really take some action on, we think. And the next one, what could we do? What could be done at the state level? Well, we could convince the legislature to repeal the laws that in Arizona that restrict cities from regulating short-term rentals, from enacting rent controls or rent caps, and to add or change to inclusionary zoning. That's the political work that needs to be done. We want to keep working with the legislature to convince them to keep funding the Housing Trust Fund. They added, I think, $6 million to that this year, which is a drop in the bucket, but it was a beginning. The Housing Trust Fund in Arizona is a pot of money that goes towards building affordable housing and housing programs. It's very important for nonprofit organizations, affordable housing developers, to be able to leverage state funds when they're building housing. It's expensive. It can cost roughly $500,000 to build a single unit because of all the restrictions. There's a piece in the LA Times today about California and how the LA city mayor was committed to building affordable housing and how that has just stalled. And so it's long-term work that's going to need a lot of people working on it. What are the next steps for VIP? First of all, I'd like you to think about who do you have, who do you know who you could share this presentation with, who we could come to and do it, or you could take it to them with some coaching and share it with? Because we think the more that people understand the facts behind the issue, the more we'll be able to leverage that. If it really is interesting to you, then if you let me know that you'd like to be one of the people working on the research and working on next steps of finding out what really, getting those next steps fleshed out, I'd love to hear from you. And we hope that you will join us at the Delegates Assembly on the 16th. Again, the forms about registering for that are here on the table. Because that's where all the member organizations will say, okay, this, other issues, what are the issues that we really, really want to dig deeply on and work on going forward, and start meeting with legislators the minute that we know who they are going to be. This meeting is 1 week after the election, and we want, no matter who's elected, we all have our fingers crossed and our toes crossed and all of that, but no matter who it is, we need to be able to start putting pressure on them immediately as they begin drafting their bills and their budget for the coming year. The problem is that there is not enough political will to enact these solutions that we've talked about. VIP needs to build power to tackle these fights in the local and state level. The first step is our Delegates Assembly. We'd love to see you there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? And Sarah has a mic.
Hi, I just want to mention, I work for the Mesa Public Library, and when Section 8 housing opened up for application in Mesa, it was a lottery for the privilege to be put onto the list, which the list itself was, as Angela's list was, about 5 years long. So we gave people extra computer time. There's 2-hour computer time at the Mesa Public Library, so they could fill out their whole applications uninterrupted with extra assistance. We had a couple people from Community Bridges helping people out with the applications themselves, but oh my God.
Yeah, but then the mayor can say, "Oh, we've just opened up our list again." You know, that's yeah. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi, good morning. My name is Keith, and we just moved here from Canada, British Columbia.
Welcome. Glad to have
Kelowna
you here.
specifically, and we're very much in touch with the same issues there. In fact, it's absolutely parallel. The numbers are exactly the same in Canada, across the country. So this is not a national issue, it's an international issue. Mm-hmm. And we were struggling to find solutions, just as you are. Exactly the same issues, same things are going on. Same numbers, same amount of increase, same reasons, everything.
Before we leave today, can you make sure that I have your name and contact information, please?
Wow. I wanted to say, Barb, I was having a little, it's gonna make me kind of teary. I was having a little moment as you were talking about this, because the first thing that I worked on out of college was I worked as a tenant organizer in HUD housing. That was my first job out of college. We worked with the National Alliance of HUD Tenants, and all of this history that you just talked about, I mean, it's like nothing changed since 1995. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like it's really weird to be here at age 50, 25 years later, and I'm still working on this issue. It's like it's just gotten worse. So there's like a sense of feeling like, okay, it's come full circle, Oglesby, like you're gonna keep putting these skills to work, and this knowledge that I had then that is still, I mean, what Angela was talking about, that's what I was working on. And so I don't know what I think about that, except that I guess, here I am. Put me to work. I will be at the Delegates Assembly. I'll be actually at that training all week with VIP. I would really, really love it. Even if you don't know that you're gonna work with VIP for this whole year, I really want you all to experience what it's like to be in a room of people who are all trying to put their heads together and figure out how to be part of the change that needs to happen in the community, because it is messy, it is all the things that Barb and I just described, and yet it is also absolutely what saves us, is that opportunity to work together. And you will take that with you wherever you go, even if it's in a different setting than the VIP setting. So, I mean, I want you to know that to me, this is like the most core thing we could be learning as a congregation, is how to be organizers in our communities and work for change. So.
Thank you.
I would like to see addressed, when I was looking for low-income housing in Chandler, it was very old places that were roach infested, and the people didn't clean up after their dogs, and it was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And I went to a meetup group once that was in a very old trailer park, and they said on the holidays they sleep on the floor because the bullets going through the trailers. That's not even safe.
So it's both the lack of and then the quality of. Those are the two parts of the issue. Yeah. Sammy, did you want to say anything as the organizer of VIP to? I mean, I'll just give you that forum to do that if you'd like.
Thank you. I just started reading this book, The Color of Law. Has anyone read this? Yeah? So this really tells the story of housing production after World War II, right? All these veterans were coming back. And the federal government built within, a decade, millions of housing units, right? Is that right, Linda? Now, granted, Black people were entirely excluded from that, right? And that was tragic. But I think that's an example that, with political will, something can be done about housing, right? The government can step in and build housing, right? There are solutions to this problem. But what it takes is organized constituencies who understand the issue and are willing to exert their political power, right? And that's what I think is really lacking in the housing fight. And that's why the work of VIP is, Barb said earlier, we teach that power is organized people and organized money. So that's really going to be the focus of the Delegates Assembly on November 16th, is how do we build that organized people and organized money so that we can tackle issues like the housing crisis here. There's other issues on our agenda too. Mental health is rapidly arising to the top. We're hearing issues about neighborhood safety, just like you said, public education. But all of that starts with having organized people and organized money. So that's my pitch for the 16th. How does that sound, Barb?
That sounds great. Thank you. If you are going to register for the Delegates Assembly, please do that, and I'll get a list that way. If you can't do that or aren't going to do that, if you would at least, I should have had a sign in before, and I didn't. I'm going to put 2 or 3 pieces of paper up here for people just to put your name and contact information so that we can make sure that you get information as we get it. I just can't thank you all enough for staying. Take more food. There's a lot. And it's not yet 1 o'clock. We got 3 minutes. We did it. Thank you.
Hey, I also just want to say that we're going to be doing these kind of deep dives. We have them sort of scheduled kind of quarterly right now for different sort of areas of involvement that we're engaged in. So this is our first try at it. What did you think? Okay. So it's just our way of trying to figure out how to make sure that folks know a little bit more about the work we're doing, the money we're spending, and why we're involved in the things we're involved in. So keep your eye out for the next one, which I think will be next month. So, yay!